was announcing that 3% of our GDP, gross domestic product, would be spent on science. And then, you know, science has brought us many things. Teflon, nylon,
lots of lawn,
teleprompters. Watch this.
Charged PCAST with advising me about national strategies to nurture and sustain a culture of scientific innovation. In addition to John, sorry, I just noticed that I jumped the gun here. Go ahead and move it up. I'd already introduced all you guys.
Oh, how embarrassing.
See, I'm wondering if the president has a hard copy of all of his speeches in front of him as well. If not, that would be a really good thing to start, because we know well enough from being in this business, and quite frankly, most of our show is not on the teleprompter, to be honest.
Our hard copy is safe on the printer.
Well, yes, but it's important to have your backup.
Right.
Just in case.
And that's right, because you always notice during the State of the Union address when they're obviously reading a teleprompter and then they'll flip over the page from page to page. George W. Bush did that all the time. And yet the president really stammered and stopped right there. So different from, remember President William Jefferson Clinton during the 1994 State of the Union, his second. Some aide accidentally loaded the wrong State of the Union address from the previous year into the prompter, and Clinton went for a half an hour ad-libbing. Here's just 18 seconds of it. It was a great performance.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, members of the 103rd Congress, my fellow Americans, I'm not at all sure what speech is in the teleprompter tonight, but I hope we can talk about the State of the Union.
And the thing is, he's great at this. And on top of that, Dick Morris said that he nailed it almost word for word, and the prompter was able to pick him up mid-speech, which is absolutely amazing.
Well, he was an amazing communicator.
20 minutes,
but that, I mean, obviously after the situation yesterday with the president, I'm sure he has a bunch of aides scurrying around this morning trying to figure out how that will not happen again.
Well, let me just tell you a prompter story. When I was out in Los Angeles, they decided not to have a staff.
Sure.
So they said, why don't you learn to load your prompter? Why don't you learn, first it was you tape it together, and then why don't you learn to control your prompter?
I did that too.
And it took me the longest time to trust a prompter operator, and now that I know what they do in their free time, it's still hard to trust them.
Sure.
But you would sit there,
and it just went blank for your benefit.
Yeah, don't get a shot of the controller now. You used to sit there with a little controller in your lap. And people used to always ask me, where are your hands?
So you would drive your own telephone.
You'd have a reverse.
Right.
You'd have a reverse and a forward, and it took me the longest time to trust anyone.
That wasn't that long ago.
Right.
I mean, technology's moved pretty quickly, folks. That was not that long. I'm sure in your career you also operated your own teleprompter, Steve.
Actually, I did feature stories during much of the time. This is the first time I've ever worked with the teleprompter.
Well, when I was at another small station, they had to have interns put the prompter on the pages on the conveyor belt.
Right.
And I'm going, okay, there I go. I start the San Francisco 49 highlights. Then I got the Met highlights. And on the third one, it was upside down. On the fourth one, it was inside out. And after that, I'm like, let's take a look together and decide what sport's coming up next.
See, in comparison, it looks like the President of the United States had a pretty good day.
Yeah, he did.
He just said, you know what?
To my career,
let's move it up.
Through the roof.
Wait a minute. He didn't go like this when the page was upside down. He didn't go.
And furthermore, I should have done that, Steve.
Yeah, exactly right. All right.
All right. More